God afton och shalom vänner. Det är profetisk uppdatering onsdag 13 december 2023. Och jag läser från Johannes 1 och de 5 första verserna där. I begynnelsen var ordet och ordet var hos Gud och ordet var Gud. Han var i begynnelsen hos Gud. Genom honom har allt blivit till och utan honom har inget blivit till som är till. I honom var liv och livet var människornas ljus. Och ljuset lyser i mörkret och mörkret har inte övervunnit det. Och enligt en expert på grekiska så står det här att ljuset har lyst och har aldrig upphört att lysa. Och mörkret har inte övervunnit det. Det talar emot JDS-läran, alltså Jesus died spiritually, att Jesus dog andligen. Jesus dog för våra synder, men han gick segrande genom döden. Och uppstod igen, som vi vet. Han är ljuset. Och den här versen den citeras ganska flitigt, tagen ur sitt sammanhang på alla möjliga håll. Men det handlar om Guds ljus, Jesus, Guds son och ingen annan. I Israel firas Chanukka, som vi vet, ljushögtiden eller tempelinvigningens högtid. Det är ju den högtiden som är efter den fruktansvärda förföljelsen och det som Antiochus Epiphanes den 4 var det väl som skända templet och offra svinkött på altaret, satte upp grekiska gudar, Jupiter bland annat, och efter allt detta så renades templet. Och då berättas att man skulle tända menorran i templet, men oljan skulle bara räcka en dag, men den räckte i 8 dagar. 9 ljus och tjänaren som den kallas i mitten är ju den som tänder de andra ljusen. Och det är en bild på Messias, Jesus, som ger oss ljus. Var det ljus, säger han, i våra hjärtan när vi tror på honom. Ungefär så i stora drag vill jag bara nämna om Chanukka. Här kommer snart 2 videor med svensk text. Den första är en rabbin som svarar på frågor om hur han ser på detta att evangeliska kristna stöder, så många evangeliska kristna över världen stöder Israel emot antisemitismen. Och vi blir uppmärksammade på att vi blir uppmärksammade på av den här rabbinen som man säger att många kristna har blivit medvetna om det som dessa onda krafterna alltid har sagt. Och det gäller woke tillsammans med terrororganisationer och övriga antisemiter och islamister. Lördagsfolket först och söndagsfolket sen. Alltså judar först och kristna sen. Det här berör oss väldigt mycket. Och därför har kristna stöd för Israel vaknat, och man har också insett att många i de yngre generationerna inte har förstått vad som pågår och inte alls har förstått hur viktigt det är att vi stöder Israel och att vi har den bibliska synen. I den andra videon berättar Jair Pinto, som jag tror han är Jannes favorit, och han är väldigt fin, Jair. Och han berättar här om läget i Gaza och kampen mot Hamas. Han berättar om läget i norr och kampen mot Hezbollah, terrorgruppen där. Översättningen blir Kisala på svenska texten, men det han menar och talar om är alltså Hezbollah. Och läget och kampen mot Houthi-terroristerna i Jemen. Till sist berättar Jair, som gör en messiansk jude, om ett bönesvar som är så betydelsefullt för honom. För han bad till Gud om att få åka hem och tända ett ljus på menorran, Chanukka-ljusstaken, med sin familj, med sin fru, sina 2 flickor och babypojken. Och idag får han avlösning och kan åka hem och göra det. Han är ju inkallad i armén och är borta hemifrån långa perioder. Och han uppmanar oss till bön och att vi får be om både stort och smått, som han säger, för Gud hör bön. Då önskar jag Guds välsignelse och shalom.
And in other news, since October 7th, there has been an outpouring of support from the global Christian community towards Israel. And joining us today in the studio to discuss this special relationship is Rabbi Tuli Weiss, founder of Israel 365. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lidar.
So we're celebrating Hanukkah these days, otherwise known as the Festival of Lights, during a dark time in Israel's history. And so what perfect timing to really discuss this support that we're receiving from the Christian community. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. The Christians are very concerned about Israel during it's a two-front battle. They're concerned about our military battle, and they're also very much concerned about the anti-Semitism. And during Hanukkah, a lot of Jews have been afraid to even display their menorahs in their homes. And so one of the things that Christians are doing is displaying menorahs. And in fact, some of them reached out to us, and we quickly put together a campaign at Israel 365, and we just made a printable menorah that people could download, and thousands of people have their menorahs in their windows as a sign of solidarity with the Jewish people.
Wow, what a beautiful endeavor. And so your organization, Israel 365, I mean, it really builds bridges between the Jewish community here in Israel and the Christian communities abroad. So, you know, how have you witnessed this special relationship and outpouring of support, especially during these last 2 months of the war?
Yeah, well, Jewish-Christian relationships over the last few years have been at a crossroads because a lot of people have been noticing that the next generation of millennials or Generation Z are not nearly as supportive of Israel as their parents and grandparents' generation. This war provoked a crisis, and we're seeing a disaster unfolding on the college campus. And so what we've been doing at Israel 365 is pivoting our attention to focus on the younger generation, on the college students. And we brought a solidarity mission to Israel just 2 weeks ago of young Generation Z leaders for Israel who are committed to going back to their college campuses and to advocate for Israel.
And so, you know, sort of taking a step back, why do you think there is such a close connection between Israel and the Christian evangelical community abroad?
Well, for the first time, Christians recognize that the attacks on the Jewish people are also attacks on them, right? Those who are our enemies right now seem to have nothing in common. What do these woke progressives and these radical Muslims have in common? The only thing that they really have in common is their shared rejection of the Bible. And the Jewish people represent the Bible. And what our enemies are actually saying is that first they're going to go after the Shabbat people, the Saturday people, and then the Sunday people, right? The jihadis are saying that this is a war against the people of the Bible and what the Jewish people represent. And that is exactly what they are saying. And Christians recognize that. They are seeing that the attacks on the Jews are really attacks also on them, and which is why so many Christians are demonstrating on behalf of Israel in America, but really all over the world.
And so, you know, you mentioned anti-Semitism that we're seeing around the world, really reaching alarming new heights. And now more than ever, Israel is really seeking allies and partners. So how is the Christian community helping in combating this hateful phenomenon, especially, as you mentioned, among sort of the younger generation?
The Christians are mobilizing in ways that we've never really seen before. They are saying that this radical Islamic takeover is not going to happen on their watch. And especially they are so upset about the persecution of the Jewish people, and they know that they didn't do nearly enough during the Holocaust, and Christians are saying, not on our watch. And we are going to defend the Jewish people in unprecedented ways. And churches are dedicating services to Israel. They are praying for Israel. They are visiting Israel. They are sending money to Israel. They are rallying for Israel. And they are looking to take back their campuses.
So really an incredible show of support. And just one final question, you know, about Israel 365 and the work that you're doing really to foster this connection, such an important connection.
Yeah, it really is. The Jewish people, we are not alone. There are millions and millions, even hundreds of millions of Christians all over the world. And that's really the silver lining of this. We're recognizing who our enemies are, but also who our friends are. And our friends are the ones who share the same beliefs as us, those who believe in the Judeo-Christian principles, and those who study the Bible. And what an opportunity for the Jewish people here in Israel on Hanukkah, the holiday where we were not allowed to practice our Judaism or read the Torah. Now it is specifically returning to the Torah and being a light unto the nations and having so many millions and millions of Christians who are also embracing that message, which is exactly why we're going to win.
What a beautiful message, and especially on Hanukkah, the Festival of Light, and shining a light on this. Rabbi Tuli Weiss, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you.
This is day 67 in the Hamas-Israel war, and I'm Yair Pinto, reporting to you from Israel. As you can see, it's raining in Israel, and the IDF is engaged in fierce battles against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. In the past 24 hours, the IDF has successfully created strategic corridors in the southern part of Gaza, separating more of Hamas terrorists from each other. The IDF is fighting monsters, and Hamas issued a statement that his organization is not negotiating a second ceasefire in order to release hostages back to Israel, and also adding that Hamas is winning the war against Israel. Of course, that these are complete lies, and Hamas officials are making these statements on a Hezbollah-affiliated network. In addition to separating Hamas terrorists from each other and preventing them from attaining additional weapons, the corridors that the IDF is creating in the Gaza Strip is cutting off the communication routes between Hamas terrorists and their leaders that include Yahya Sinwar and Muhammad Deif. So, in practice, the leadership of Hamas has no control and no eyes on what is happening in the field, and the terror units that are located within certain areas that are surrounded by the IDF are operating without a leader and making decisions based on what they see in the ground without a bigger plan. In the eastern part of Khan Yunis, Hamas terrorists carried out an attack from the Salah al-Adin road using RPGs and other ammunitions in order to carry out attacks against the IDF troops. But the communications of the IDF is running smoothly, and a tank unit was able to intercept the terrorists and neutralize them. During the attacks, the IDF units were supported by the Israeli Air Force, and together they were able to push back Hamas's offensive. The terrorists are using extreme methods against the Israeli tanks, running to a tank with an explosive device and placing it on the tank itself, some of them committing suicide while doing so. This is a next level of extremism against the Israeli tanks and a different way of warfare. At the moment, these attacks are only damaging the tanks and not the soldiers within, but it appears as if Hamas is investing a lot of its resources in continuing these sort of suicide attacks. In a different part of the Gaza Strip, Hamas opened fire from a command station within a populated area. The IDF responded using infantry and tank units, and together with 4 Israeli choppers were able to neutralize the building and Hamas's terrorists within. In the southern part of the Gaza Strip, special unmanned aerial vehicles spotted an entry point to an underground Hamas terror tunnel. After discovering the tunnel, the Israeli Air Force launched a bunker buster missile that exploded after hitting deep into the ground, creating a massive explosion. After the explosion and the smoke passed away, the IDF were able to see that Hamas had a huge underground terror tunnel in that location. And according to reports, 10 Hamas officials were neutralized in this attack. In the northern part of Gaza, in the area of Jabalia, IDF forces uncovered vast amounts of ammunitions, rifles, AK-47s, vests, grenades, explosives, and other ammunitions that Hamas stocked in civilian buildings in order to conduct a long war against the IDF. The IDF is taking the weapons and investigating them in order to identify the origins of so much ammunition that Hamas was able to smuggle into the Gaza Strip. Other weapons the IDF is destroying in the field. In one of the discoveries that the IDF made, it located an operational apartment of a Hamas operative. In the apartment, the IDF found weapons and laptops that included detailed information and plans on the 7th of October terror attacks against Israel, in which 1,400 Israelis lost their lives. In the West Bank area of Jenin, the IDF is conducting operations to identify and arrest Palestinian terror elements. During these operations, terrorists opened fire towards the IDF troops and hurled explosive devices. The forces, together with a special Israeli unmanned aerial vehicle, were able to identify and neutralize the terrorists. According to Palestinian officials, 3 of them were neutralized. On Israel's northern border, in the battle against Hezbollah, which is an Iranian proxy that controls Lebanon, the tensions are escalating. An Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, stated that any forces that will get within the 3 kilometers radius from the Israeli border will be considered as enemies. So far, Hezbollah is disregarding the Defense Ministry's warnings and is mobilizing its forces closer to the border with Israel. Hezbollah opened fire towards communities and IDF locations on its northern border, and the IDF retaliated by targeting Hezbollah's positions and military locations on the Lebanese side. Alarms were sounded in the northern parts of Israel, warning of unmanned aerial vehicles and missiles attacks. The tensions are high, and the IDF is holding large amounts of military forces in order to prepare for any scenario in the battle against Hezbollah in Lebanon. As a response to Hezbollah's attacks against Israel, the IDF retaliated, but also issued a warning to Hezbollah to stop attacking Israel, or the IDF will plan offensives on the ground of Lebanon. On Israel's southern front against the Houthis in Yemen, 2 American sources reported to the Reuters news agency that a ballistic missile was fired by the Houthis and hit a Navy vessel 100 kilometers north of Bab el-Mandez. A U.S. military naval vessel was in the area and was able to provide aid to the attacked ship. The spokesperson for the Houthis issued a statement claiming responsibility for the missile that was launched against a Norwegian naval vessel called Strinja on the middle of the sea. It refused to respond to warnings and was heading towards Israel, according to the Houthis. According to the Reuters news agency, Strinja, the Norwegian naval vessel, was indeed planned to port in Israel. The Norwegian owner of the ship stated that all of the crew are safe and that his naval vessel is heading to a safe port. We've heard multiple reports about the Houthis and their failed attempts in carrying out attacks against Israel, against the United States. Many of their missiles do not reach their targets, and they are not successful in conducting almost any attacks against Israel or America. But let's talk about another angle in this war. So the Houthis are an Iranian proxy, and Iran is conducting a war against Israel and against the United States. This war is not only military. This war is also economically, like any wars. The Houthis, by controlling the waters in the area of Yemen, are affecting the normal sea routes of many merchant ships that take these routes every day. And by doing so, these ships that are afraid to be attacked by Houthis, thinking that they are Israelis, or because they plan to go to Israel on their way back to their home port, are taking a much longer route. And this is costing money for you, for me, for the entire economic ecosystem in Europe, in the United States, and in the world. The Houthis are not a joke, and Iran is using them in order to weaken the ecosystem of the West. This is all part of this war. It's all connected, and we need to connect as well and unite in order to battle this evil that is called Iran, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, and any radical ideology that seeks to spread to the rest of the world and destroy our day-to-day lives. And during these hard times of uncertainty and fear, we need to call on to our Father in heaven and ask Him to strengthen us, to give us courage to do the right thing, and to ask Him to fill our hearts with love and with security. Even in small things in life. Let me give you an example. I haven't seen my kids and my wife for a long time. Usually in the army, you go out for a few hours every few weeks or something like that. And I asked my friends to pray for me that someone will come and can take my position so I can go home and light a Hanukkah candle with my girls and my little baby boy. And today this prayer was answered, and I'm able to go home and light a candle with my family. So God is answering prayer, and He's listening to us. And it doesn't matter if the prayer is big, small, or personal. He's our Father. So let's join together in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem and for Israel during these hard times.